right, so finally made it to the Isabela work site. This is actually right next to the coast. We're about maybe 4 houses away from the beach on this side. So this is as raw as it gets. We're actually gonna look at all of the actual footings. The guys are working on getting the rebar and the compacting material up to level so that we can put the material for our final rebar for flooring. So if you guys want to check out over here, this is the channel that we had to dig out for our first groundbreaking day. We took advantage and dug out a 3-foot trench that is going to be getting our electricity and our water from the front of the property. And that's going to lead us to the actual place where we're going to be building the new home. Some of the most important parts of the build is the logistics, you know, thinking about when are we going to do what, because everything has to be done at a specific step. You want to make sure that you have your machinery in to dig out the trenches and take advantage and take out the fencing that the customer asked us to take out. We took care of that same day. But then once that's there, do we have the compacting material to be able to put in once we did all the work that needed to be done inside the footings. We actually already got one of the pours done, which was the pours for the actual bottom, the actual footings of the house and the columns. So that's the base so that we can actually get either brick up to level or rebar if it is a solid wall that we're gonna be putting up. There's actually some sections in the blueprint where it's a solid concrete wall going up in 3 locations. So that goes with rebar and carpentry all the way up to floor level. So the big goal right now is getting to floor level so that we can get floor poured and our first inspection and phase completed. So we gotta make sure we have the correct amount that is the width of a wall with the plaster and finish, you know. So they created a mold here, and eventually we're gonna have to dig a trench so that we can tie here this footing with the footing of the building. This is actually where we're at right now. What I'm showing you guys is the balcony. They're gonna have a nice, cool, semi-wraparound balcony. Towards this side here, we're gonna have the garage. So we're gonna be doing a driveway. You can see the guys actually already started creating a bit of a pitch down for the driveway. But here in this specific construction, the requirement is 8 inches of compacted material, 4 inches to get up to floor height. So we're about 1 foot off of the ground, but obviously no ground is actually perfectly level. So we're over here leveling the areas that are low lying. This is a pretty cool thing to notice as well, as you guys can see the wood that goes all around the property here in Puerto Rico. Le llamamos battleboard. I guess in English it would be batterboard. I learn every day the different names and whatnot, but if you guys can see where all the nails are, there's specs for the actual lines that they use. And these are the master lines that they use to reference for all the columns, all the locations of the property. And we make sure that everything is very, very square. But also too, if you notice, the batterboard will also indicate what is level. If you have on this side lower height, is because the floor is higher on that side, and vice versa. So if we don't have that reference point, we could build a lopsided house, obviously, you know. So on this side, we're gonna need to add more because it's lower on this side of the property. So that's this we try not to even touch it, even if we have to get machinery in here. We'll rather break open a space and get machine in and out to avoid messing with any of the levels of the property, because that's, I mean, just 2-3 days and just making sure we're meticulously putting the levels of the property to make sure the floor is level, to make sure the columns are in the right distance from each other. I mean, it's a lot of moving parts, and it all starts with a good batterboard around the property. So if you guys want to see something interesting here, if you look at this column, before the mold gets filled with the concrete, every tie has to be at a specific level, which was already past inspection. Thankfully, we got our first clear inspection on what has been constructed up until now. But all this has a very specific location. Everything has to be a distance from whatever, you know, the blueprint calls. If you guys look on this side here, you see that these rebars that are coming up, these rebars are actually the ones that tie into the final level of the floor. So eventually, once we get this up to the height, right? As I was mentioning, we got to get 8 inches of compacted material. We got 4 inches to go up of the actual tile. So once we get to that level, so roughly about a foot, we start to bend this rebar inwards and tie in with the actual floor, which is going to be all of our 3/8. That's going to be 12 by 12 center to center as a grid all the way through. So it's going to be very interesting to finally see all this with all of its plastic and completely sealed with the rebar everywhere. So it's going to be really cool. I'm excited about that. Here we got the guys as well doing their thing, just getting everything located at the height we got to get to, and just working hard. Y bueno, ya para la semana que viene, Sandro viene a poner la electricidad y la plomería que hace falta.
Hay que tirar toda la corrida que corresponde a los receptáculos que vienen desde el panel principal de la casa.
Ok.
Y la tubería principal de 2 pulgadas que va a alimentar el panel.
Okay.
Desde donde vamos a hacer el MDP, el panel de distribución.
Okay.
Por lo menos eso es lo que corresponde del piso.
So, lo que se tiene que tener puesto antes de que se vacíe el piso es la tubería principal de 2 que viene del MP hacia el panel principal, y todas las tuberías de los circuitos separados que se va a tirar alrededor de la casa.
Del piso, exactamente, la que corresponde al piso,
okay,
a los receptáculos.
Todas las otras cosas, las que se pueden hacer por las paredes y por los toppings.
Después por las paredes se tiran otras tuberías, y cuando se vaya a tirar el techo se tira otra tubería más.
So we're actually in the location where the septic is going to be installed here in this area next to the house. One of the components that is very essential to making sure we're ready for our floor pour is making sure that we have our sanitary tubing is going to be going to the septic installed. So that drain is specified in our blueprint to let us know what route we need to go. And if we are on this side of the property, this is where we are, this is where the septic is going to be more or less, we need to make sure that we have this 3-inch Schedule 40 pipe to be laid towards, adjacent towards the staircase in the back. And it's going to take 90-degree turn to be able to feed or supply right in the middle of the property, as most of the water features of the property are right in the middle. You see, you have our bathrooms here, then you have our kitchen. That sanitary main, what we call here el muñeco principal, is going to be right there to collect for the toilet, the bidet, the kitchen sinks and whatnot, all the way towards the front where we'll have our 3-inch register that we use in case anything gets clogged. And we have a register as well in the back. In case any clogs or whatnot, you have an access as well. That's very important to always have. So if we see this route, we're pretty much going to be taking this septic pipe, the main drain, right, all the way through here, adjacent to this footing, and it's going to take a dip and take the 90-degree turn right through here. And this is the wall of the property where you have your bathroom, you have your kitchen, and you keep walking to the front where you're going to have the register right here in the front, accessible for plumbers or whatnot to be able to use. So that's pretty much what needs to be done to complete the septic and drain part of this phase for the floor. From this way, though, we also need to make sure that we have our water lines, our main water lines, which is going to be our copper water lines, that are going to run down through this main adjacent with the electric, and it's going to feed all of the water that is going to be our features here, our kitchen and our bathroom as well. And finally, the last part that we need to do for the electric is, as I showed you guys before, the electric is coming from the front of the property, and it's going to have a 2-inch conduit that's going to lead the main electric to where our main panel of the house is, which I believe is somewhere towards this side here. And this is going to be fed for the main panel from the distribution panel which is then over there fed from the actual pedestal of the freestanding pedestal where Luma is connected, and we get the electric comes down here, connects to the distribution panel, gets all the way here through the 2-inch conduit to our main panel. And then this main panel, we need to have all the circuit conduit as well set so that we could feed the cable and have that underneath the floor. So that needs to be done before the floor pour is completed. All the circuit conduit and the main conduit of the electric. Once we have that, we're ready for our first phase pour, which is the floor pour. So in this blueprint, we are very specifically shown what sections need to be set up in a specific manner. For example, there are parts of the footing where we can actually create the base footing and go up in cinder block. But there's other sections in the property where it's going to be full concrete wall builds. So you'll see and you'll notice sections where there's going to be the cinder blocks, and then you're also going to see sections where it's carpentry because we're going to be pouring a completely full pour all the way up, which is interesting because you could see here when we actually do that, the difference between cinder block and this is, for example, a concrete full wall that we're going to be going up, and all of the rebar, it has a spec distance and a spec gauge of the rebar for these specific sections. Very important. The actual footing also has its rebar to a spec as well. But if you notice ever in your work sites where you have some parts where there's carpentry and there's some parts that are cinder block, it's because there's some levels that require to have more strength due to where the distribution of the design was based off of, you know, weight distributions and whatnot. And there's some sections that it's okay to have it up to cinder block level. And from there, we continue up where the strength is, which are the columns of the property. That's where the strength is in the properties. So very interesting to know that, and very good to know as well if you're doing your new build. So all that you see up until this point was a labor of love. We've been here for roughly about a month. So the guys have been really hitting it hard, even though what we're seeing now is just footings and columns. It's actually a lot of work. It's a process that is very specific, and we have to run it by a specification done by an engineer. And so we would love to go quicker. However, this requires inspections, this requires oversight. And though in my previous projects, we've built from the ground up in the past, this is the first time that we're actually doing it by a specific engineer's blueprints that require very, very meticulous specifications. And so what you see here is an awesome accomplishment for me, for our guys as a company. And this before was just a flat open ground, beautiful, you know, open space right by the water, amazing, just empty lot. But we got to see the groundbreaking. We got to see the process of the digging. We got to see the process of how those footings are opened up and we start actually creating something, putting something in the ground. And the client has been so excited. You know, I try to send him little videos and photos as we do progress, and he's just so excited to just see something in the ground. And those little just previews of seeing potentially, you know, this building start to become what it's meant to be, you know, seeing their dream come true. I'm trying to be as detailed as possible because I want to show you guys from a contractor's perspective how this process works. And I want to show you guys from the inner workings, from the ground up, how you get to the beautiful house that you end up living in. But how do we get that started? So stay tuned for more content. Thank you guys for all that follow, for all that comment and all that share. We really appreciate you guys. We are a growing operation. So I know that we're gonna have to have double the workers, double the amount of resources, because the amount of phone calls that are coming in, and it's all because of you guys being there and, you know, sharing the content. And I appreciate all that you do. So thank you guys. Stay tuned from Puerto Rico. Much love, and let's keep going.